Can you grab me a beer?
What's up, Dusty? How you doing, man? You
I'm
gotta have the
doing
beer.
great.
You can't start the show off without asking your wife for a beer, man. It just doesn't. It's just the way it goes.
Man, I mean, just that. I mean, just that alone feels just like so good. She's such a wonderful girl. But yeah, you can't
Yeah.
do one without a little cocktail or a beer. Take the edge off, I suppose.
Right. Right. Make the conversation fun.
Yeah, a little bit. A beer or
Yeah.
two for anybody.
All right, man. Well, first time on the show, you gotta do an intro. Like if you come back on, you won't have to do it again. But just kind of who you are, what you done, and what's going on in your life, right?
Sure. My name is Dusty Yakker, and I was a teacher for a long time, and I started kayaking, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago, and started doing it competitively 3 or 4 years ago. And this last year, I resigned from my job to entertain some more full time effort in the space. I don't know exactly what it's going to mean, but the sky's the limit. I like to write. I do some content, and I love the tourney grind.
All right, cool. Now, you also do music, right? I've heard you sing a few songs to me.
Ah, jeez, man. Oh, did I dedicate him to you?
I don't know, but when I watched the videos, I felt like it was to me.
Yeah, I do tend to just sort of go down there and write some songs, and I've been playing piano for a little. I started in college, and I learned I just was goofing around, and I really love it. It's a real passionate hobby, and it is something I do on the side, but it's mostly therapeutic and for pure enjoyment. I'll go play at a bar, open mic night, or something like that, occasionally, but it's a wonderful thing that I get to do for sure.
Well, cool, bro. Well, real quick, how did you end up getting into a kayak? Obviously you've been doing it for some years now, but we got to hear that. Like I said, I swear to God, you come back on, we won't ever talk about this shit again. We just got to get it out there just for the new people, all right?
That's awesome. I thought I had a unique story, but really, as I hear these stories from people, it's very similar. I started out with a sun dolphin, like a 10.5 foot sun dolphin. That's kind of a cute story because I came home one day for my birthday, and my backyard, people were partying in my backyard. I was like, oh, and they were like surprised, and like a little surprise birthday they had for me. But then in the basement, when we all made it in, the real surprise was that there was that sun dolphin, a brand new one from like a Sports Authority or something like that. And I'd always told her that I just want something cheap like that, just so that I can get off the shore and off the bank, and we could throw it right on the roof. And every time we go camping and we do our travels, I'll have access to some really cool fishing. So I got into that. I learned the nuances of paddling and look and kayaking, and I found that it was super conducive to just getting to all those cool little river spots and lake spots that you were never able to cast to from shore. So I did that for a couple of years, and then one day, at Forest Preserve Lake, I ran into a guy packing up, and he was another kayaker who had a little bit more of a sophisticated rig, and he told me about these online tournaments and people competing in kayak tournaments, and I was like, what? I was like, how do you carry the fish? Do you put them on a stringer, or I mean, how do you do the weigh in? He's like, no, no, no. There's this app, and I was blown away by the whole thing. So I specifically remember going home that day and the next day, and you literally couldn't drag me from the screen. I was trying to research all these various organizations and how to join and eligibility, and I got super pumped up because as a child, I grew up with just wanting to be by the water all the time. I begging my dad to do this or that. We had a small cabin in Michigan, and any opportunity I got, I would just want to fish from sun up till sundown. I always wanted to be by water and be by fishing. Yeah. Anyways, to make a long story short, man, that's kind of how I got into the kayak scene, man. And one thing led to another. And using that sun dolphin, I competed in some tournaments and won some tournaments. I won a Hobie using that thing, and then I won another Hobie, and I had a lot of success in the local region, and I branched out nationally, had some success, and kind of here I am today.
Yeah, that sounds just like everyone else's story.
I, I think I think what I meant by it was starting with a small, like a small sit-in kayak, a small
Yeah, yeah,
accessible.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe
Definitely took
perhaps
your time.
yeah, that aspect.
Right, right. Well, cool, man. You're a fellow tournament angler. I got a question because something's been bugging me today.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm getting ready for like my season because I'm in the Northeast, And I just
Dude,
I because
I love your
I want,
energy, man. I love your energy right now. Seriously, man, I
but
love it, dude.
But I wanted my, I don't have my kayak now, so I'm kind of like in this weird limbo. I couldn't go down south and play with everyone. But
Okay.
still, I'm just in this weird phase where I'm just getting everything ready. Like I'm ready to crush 2021. And
Yeah.
yeah, I was sitting there just thinking about shit. Cause I'm getting ready to make like my 12th purchase of jackhammers this year.
Oh,
And I'm getting ready to drop like another $100. I'm just like, Jesus Christ. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, dude, why am I doing this? Like, I mean, I haven't won a tournament. I got probably more than enough I need. But when you start thinking about tournaments, you're like, I need more. Like, what if I lose this shit? Or what if I
man.
lose two of them? And what if I flip my kayak and lose all of them or something? You know what I mean? So it's like all these things go in my head. But what do you think it is that obsesses us to the point where we're almost like we're almost willing to put ourselves in like financial binds or travel the it's a madness sport.
I'll tell you what, man. I think it extends into the larger scene, brother. I think since from birth we're bombarded with marketing and crazy commercials that are brutally efficient by people with billions of dollars, and they make us feel whether we think we have free choice or whether we think we're conscious or above it or we know we're too smart for that stuff. We're bombarded with messages that constantly tell us we don't have enough, we're not good enough, we need this, we need that, we need this to be happy, and that extends into the fishing world. So when you start getting competitive and you have that anxiety to begin with, you start wanting more, and you start freaking out that you need that. And yeah, man, you nailed it. My Plano Edge box was chocked full of JDM chatterbaits, brake blades, jackhammers, you name it. Like Chalkfly just took stuff from that I was usually in my house that I didn't bring all the time. I just took it to go to be prepared for any color I needed on Seminole, to be prepared for whatever I needed, perhaps at Lake Murray. I mean, that's how it is. And I regret that, man. I regret that so much, because that's the one that plopped in there and didn't, probably sunk to the bottom or whatever. I don't know. I couldn't recover that one. That's, thousands of dollars.
But I find myself like trying to balance it out, like what I need and what I don't need, because
that's smart.
I was using chatterbaits last year. I've been using chatterbaits for a few years now, and I realized I only use like a certain color unless shit goes bad. Like I'll only use like one or two of them a year of a certain color.
Yeah, well, that's less is more, man. I mean, there's a lot of guys, that freak out and obsess over colors, but there's a lot of guys that will pick 1, 2, or 3, and that's their solid go-to. And really, despite all the stuff I have, that's kind of me too. There's make 2, 3, or 4 patterns that pretty much work everywhere, and they're pretty much my go-to, with an exception here or there.
Yeah, but I had to bring that up. I was just sitting there worried about today. Like I was talking to someone on the phone. I was like, "Do you
don't worry?
One of these spot remover patterns?" And I'm like just asking weird questions, questioning myself. Am I really wanting to spend another $100? And it's just like I feel like every year it's like this. And I usually don't calm down until about June, where I'm like, okay, I think I'm done for the year. I think I can now not spend money.
That's how everybody is. Everybody's fired up in February and March or January, and they get out, they do a couple of tourneys, they get to the grind. Maybe they don't do so well, and then they kind of slow down.
Well, cool, man. Well, obviously, there's an obvious reason why you came on the show. I've been wanting to get you here longer, but some reason, every time that I think about reaching out to you, like the paddle and fin steal my ideas or whatever, or something like that, and so I missed the opportunity.
Those tricky
jerks,
guys.
Those jerks at the paddle and fin. But no, you had a serious mishap down in Lake Murray.
Yes, I did.
I think it's cool to talk about because it happened to me in the fall last year, and like it's a weird thing when you flip your kayak, because the thing is it's not if you're going to flip it, it's when you're going to flip it, and then when you flip it, there's obviously the safety or your well-being that needs to be considered, and there's also it changes to me. It changed my life dramatically because I had to replace a lot of shit. From the pole, I lost poles, I lost tackle boxes,
I lost everything.
Lost everything. For some reason, I had my fish finder, because it was upside down for a certain period of time. It went bad. A whole bunch of shit went wrong. But I guess before we really get into like the shittiness of flipping your kayak, what happened? Like, I know you guys are down there. I know it was cold water. I'm not sure exactly what the conditions were, but tell me the story of what happened.
Well, air temps at the time of my flipping was about 50 degrees. A little chillier in the morning at launch. It was just a crummy couple days of practice, man. And I tell myself going in, don't kill yourself in practice. Don't kill yourself in practice. No pun intended. Don't grind it out, with your legs. Don't go 15 miles on the pedals, because I don't have a motor on my kayak, which will be changing very soon. Don't overdo it. And I did. I found myself trying to cover this spot and that spot because I really couldn't. I mean, I had like three, I think, two or three bites in practice. So I found myself on Friday looking for a new spot. So I was fortunate enough to work with another angler, and we made a decision, and it was a great one. It was a great decision, and I found myself upriver, and I fish rivers all the time. It is probably hands down my favorite way to fish, even in that kind of current, which wasn't like brutally strong, but it wasn't slow at all. It was about 3 miles per hour, and that'll move you. That'll move you quick. But it's one of my favorite styles of fishing. So I found myself up in that scene early in the morning, around 7:45, 7:30, launching from one spot, and my float partner was my wife, because she's not on the kayak, she doesn't fish, but she'll go back to the hotel, work for a little bit, and then meet me at the takeout spot, and then we'll keep in touch while I'm on the river. This was a little nerve-wracking because it was a stretch I had never been on, so it's an unfamiliar stretch. So there's got to be people that know where you're at. The other anglers I was fishing with were above me, a couple miles above me, doing a separate float. And I was a little nervous because it was lengthy, a lot of big bends and turns. So as the crow flies, maybe 4 or 5 miles, as the river turns, gosh, it was like 13, 14 miles, I think. So that's where I found myself, and I found myself smack dab in the middle of some fantastic action. I found a nice little pattern, and they were in predictable spots in the river, spots you can see with your eyes. And with the Hobie pedal system, it's just a joy to get that in the current the right way and to position yourself so you're just stationary and making pinpoint casts at cuts or in eddies or in current seams. That's what I was doing, and I was just having a ball. And I think I caught like 30 fish and a couple nice ones mixed in. So I was feeling so good about the next day. In fact, I was just feeling excellent. It was overcast and gray, but it was just, I was in my element. I mean, this is what I love to do, is nature. I mean, I just eat it up. And gosh, I got close to the launch point, man. It was like 2:45. But like I've been on a lot of podcasts, or, I've been talking to some people, and the story is obviously going to be very similar. And one thing that I've said was, you can't blame me. Other people would do the same thing. I guess I kind of got greedy because the water started getting a little muddier. The bite had stopped. They really wasn't set up to fish like the sections that I was really successful in. And I should have just put my stuff away and got to the launch and said, man, I know exactly the section I'm going to fish and exactly what I'm going to do. And it looks like I can focus on that, because down here, there's really nothing to fish. So what do? I'm like, there's got to be a few more spots. Let me find something that, if I don't have a limit, or the fishing's bad, let me find something that maybe I can have a chance at a fish or two right at the launch, and or right at the pickup spot. So what happened was I went to pick up a swim jig rod, and it was caught in the pedals. And you pull it, you see that it's caught, you angle it differently down in the water to just try to pull it off. You flutter your pedals to see if you can get it off. And in that takes 2-3 seconds. And that's all it took for me to be a little too close to a giant laydown that's, running perpendicular and across the river. So the current's just sweeping against it. These are called strainers in river terminology, and they're deadly. And so many people drown in just the thing that almost drowned me. I mean, really, it was like a textbook drowning had I not survived. So the water temp was cold. It was 47 degrees. Air temps are 50, so that's you're at hypothermic conditions right there. And in that little mishap of me getting my line snagged in the pedals was all it took for that situation to set up. In hindsight, I might have tried slamming it in reverse, but when something's caught in your pedals, you're just not going to have full control. And if you try to go forward and turn, you've got 3 miles of current pushing you forward. You're not going to turn anywhere. You're just going to speed and go forward. So that's what I did. I went forward into the strainer and immediately broadsided and it flipped me like a toy in half a second. And so one time I'm like, oh shit, I'm into this tree, which sometimes it's normally not a big deal. You go through trees all the time in rivers. You just got to kind of be cognizant of what's going on. But then boom, and that's it. And then I'm submerged. and I didn't come up really good.
Jesus.
I didn't come up really good at all. I was in a bunch of limbs and crap. And when I came up, like I came up and I can feel the water coming up under the jacket and puffing the life jacket up like real big, like my chest was like expanding, and the water was like right here. So I'm like this. Yeah, it's just really bad, and I just it's I couldn't move one arm, but I couldn't move one arm really, but I can try to do this to try to like because your instinct is to like try to make your way out of that, but I really couldn't move because something was snagged back here, and I'm sort of like bobbing down, and the current's really trying to drag me under this lay down, and it couldn't because something was caught, so I'm just in the middle of this washing machine, and I'm thinking to myself, oh man, this is not good, and it was a somebody asked me earlier, how long do you think it took from when you flipped to when you got to shore? And I really don't know. I mean, it could have been maybe 10 seconds or 20 seconds. It could have been more like 30 or 40 seconds. I don't think it was anywhere near over a minute. But I remember feeling cold when I got in, and it was real cold, and like as the water sunk in, and then as I'm sitting there kind of trapped, I tried to come to some peace with the situation because I realized real soon it was really hard for me to move. I can't get myself out of this situation. I could. Right. There's a whistle on my life jacket. I couldn't even get that because my rain jacket was over it. So, I thought about some things, and I said some things to myself, and I kind of like I remember specifically what I was thinking and how peaceful the moment was. It was bizarre. It was bizarre and it was weird. But then I remember getting angry and like feeling like, whoa, wait a minute, man. And I remember getting like angry, not like, wait, well, I got to do something. Wait, I can't die. It wasn't like that. It was like, fuck, man, dude, no way, man. I'm not doing this. Not like this. I started getting angry. Yeah, dude, totally. Right. And I was swearing out loud, like at the birds. And I reached behind me, like in this weird way, and I grabbed whatever I grabbed, and it was a branch, and I snapped it. I didn't even know if it was a random branch or the one that got me, but as soon as I snapped it, I spun around and came up a little bit. And this time, the current was at my back, coming over my back. But now my chest is laying on this big thick branch. So now I could like move. Now I took my arms and moved and slid over the thing and spun around again. But the current was like slowing down a little bit because of that big strainer. And I was able to swim to shore, but not easily, because I was like physically unspent, and like all my clothes were wet, and the boots were filling with water. And when people describe that situation, it's no joke, man. If you got heavy boots on or something like I don't have heavy boots. These were water boots. They're light, very light, but they fill up, and they fill up with water, so they're like weights. So I got to shore, and man, I didn't get to shore. Actually, I like stuck my head in the mud. Like the current slows down really kind of slow right by the bank. So when I got to that bank, like I literally like shoved my head in that clay. It's like red soil clay. If you've ever seen that river in South Columbia, in South Carolina, and I just stuck my arms and my head in it, like literally, so I would stay, because my feet were dangling and floating in the current a little bit. So that's how I gathered my strength and my breath, and was able to kind of do that down the bank for about 10 or 15 yards until I was able to climb up. And when I climbed up, the first thing that I did was kind of sit on my knees for a little bit. I was puking up some whatever I swallowed, and I did this, and my phone was right in my phone was right in my life vest pocket. And my first instinct was, I just spent a minute underwater. It's it's dead. It's fried. But I think I do have a water resistant model, but it was in a life-proof case, and right. It was fine. It was full of charge. It turned on. It was fine. So I tried to control my breathing, but I was so muddy. I couldn't even get my phone. I couldn't even get the passcode in because the phone was like, my hands were wet. I was shaking. There was mud all over everything. I tried drying it, but nothing was dry. Everything I had was wet, and everything in the ground was wet because it had been drizzling. And I was like, crap. So I was trying to get the thing off, and I really couldn't. It took like a minute to get that off and get just the password to open up my phone. And it was that, like, had it been a different scenario, like that alone might cost you. I had a buddy text me. He's like, dude, I turned that feature off not because of a survival situation, but he doesn't like doing it when he enters fish or has to take pictures of fish. He doesn't like messing with his code and glare and the water and all that stuff. So he tells me to take that off. And that's just kind of a smart thing, man, because when you're shivering and you don't have your wits about you and you just went through a traumatic experience. I mean, you're
Gotta call 911 or something.
Yeah,
or
man.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
At that
Well,
point,
you could.
that's a pretty password is kind of a
Yeah. You could call 911. I believe in emergency. You could
right.
like
Yeah,
up
you
and do
can.
an emergency call. But I mean, I needed to contact Cody and Christine because they were the ones behind me. And I just texted. I tried to spell emergency real quick so that they knew something was up because the next call I wanted to make was to 911. So I called 911 and I let them know exactly what was happening and they wanted me to send them my GPS pin. So I was able to send them my GPS pin. I felt good about that. So I sat down on a big log for a while and tried to just calm down and assess the situation. And then I called, my wife, and then I called my mom. And eventually it turned out to not be so big of a deal because even though I was cold and wet, the bridge was a couple miles away. So if I knew
how cold was the water?
47 degrees.
Okay, that's cold. That's
cold.
That's
cold.
deadly.
It is deadly. But I don't. I was in it under a minute, and although I did get soaked, I was cold and shivering. It was like maybe like this mild hypothermia, something that you could recover from on your own.
Right.
And so I started to warm up when I continued to walk because it was a lot of vines and a lot of BS for me to get through. I had to cross a couple more creeks, but fortunately they only came up to like my knees. So yeah, and then the sheriffs called me and they'd turn on their sirens and asked if I heard it, and then I started hearing it. So I'm like, cool. So then I was fine, and I got to the bridge, and Cody was waiting for me, and some rescue services, and my wife and truck and stuff. So it what could have been just a horrible thing turned out to be just fine. I did flip the kayak and lose most of my premium tackle. I mean, I lost thousands and thousands of gear, a lot of irreplaceable lures. I mean, they might be, but it just took so long to build that stuff. And, it was a regret having all that with me because A, you don't need it. B, for a fact you're only going to use a certain percentage of that. And it's only psychological and mental that you want it all. So I'm going to change my approach that way. And plus, after everything was said and done, and with the tournament, I was given 3 rods with like a couple lures, and I did very well. So less.
Check.
Yeah, I did. So less is more sometimes, man. And I think for me, I'm really learning like what's better for me and what's best for me as I move forward in this space because I think less is more. The less things that I want my core stuff, but I think the less things in my kayak and the less things I have to deal with and think about is going to make me more efficient.
It's really funny you say that. I flipped my kayak in the fall, and I lost all my shit. I lost. I think I was only able to salvage like 2 or 3 rods, and they weren't even my favorite rods.
That's same with me. The 2 rods I got, I was like, why couldn't those be the ones that sunk?
Yeah,
back, man.
And so, but I lost a lot of tackle. And so you go through this this rebuilding phase. I mean, I'm thankful it happened at the end of the fall, so I didn't have to worry about any more tournaments or things like that. But I had to go like a rebuilding. I had to decide, all right, I need rods. I need to build up my my arsenal again. But the thing is like I realized that when I was going what do I need? And that's what I was basically going on. I had to convince my wife that hey, I need to buy a lot more shit because I just lost a lot of shit. And so we were going over. I was going. My whole approach to
on the way home.
My whole approach to telling her how hey babe, I got to fish next season, so we need to do this. And so, but the thing is what it really made me do is dude, you need to consolidate your shit because half that shit you didn't use, majority of that shit you didn't use. You need to think about using angle. What do you like to do? What do you want to do? What are the things you want to work for? But I downsized a lot of shit, and so when I started buying new stuff, I only bought the rods that I know that I wanted. I only bought the tackle and the stuff that was based off the way I like to fish. And I'm not saying I'm not leaving room. I'm not saying I'm cutting off room for other techniques in the near future, but I don't need them right now. I don't need everything right now. And so I kind of consolidated. I'm only down to 6 or 7 rods right now. And maybe 5 or 6 tackle blocks I'll take with me to support those 6 rods. But I really I was traveling with too much. I was spending way too much money, and I think it's the whole safety part of it was probably the most important thing that I learned about flipping my kayak. But still, the whole gear thing, because that is a big thing. You love the sport, and all of a sudden you lose thousands of dollars with equipment. I mean, it's
it's a high risk thing, and I know that risk. I know it now a little more, but I mean, I did know that risk. I mean, it's not like I was completely naive. I mean, I know I know what I'm doing. I know what I sign up for when I'm launching on lakes or rivers early in the season, late in the season, and I'm going to continue to do that. I mean, I'm certainly going to use this experience to my benefit, but it's not like I want to all of a sudden harbor some fear
Right.
or develop some sort of neuroses about it. I mean, I don't really see that happening.
Well, let me ask you this, because the gear be damned. Like safety comes first, but like one of the things
Yeah,
that I realized
absolutely.
when I flipped my kayak, I was being complacent. I wasn't respecting the conditions, and I was doing something that I should have been doing. Like so, like I was staying shallow because it was rough, and I was fishing a little pocket or a little whatever bay or whatever, like a little pocket that was still getting hit, but it wasn't as bad as the rest of the lake. So it was rough, and I had my GoPro. And like for some reason, I was looking like, oh, the angle's bad, so I went to fix it and just shifted my weight just a little bit. Wave comes up, a rogue wave comes up, and just like that, I'm over. Like
Done.
what point? What was I doing? Fucking around with my camera? Like I knew the conditions were bad. I knew that why didn't I just go pull over to the side to a safe place and mess with my camera? All these things, but it's like you don't think about that because you've gotten away with so much bullshit for so long, and finally Mother Nature's like, you can't do this, and I'm going to teach you a valuable lesson. I'm going to take your equipment. I'm going to humble you real quick, Josh.
Well, I'm in a Hobie, man, and if you know anything about Hobies, those things are hard to flip even with your hands in the water. Their secondary stability is ridiculous. The whole design. So for that thing to just go like that, I mean, that current was. I mean, it's just such a bad spot. But you're right, man. It's these little subtle things that we never think about when you hear people's stories. It's usually an awkward movement or putting their head in a different direction, or just at the precise moment, waves under their kayak, just like these little things. You're making me freak out because I adjust my camera all the time. I got it on the front on that little thing. I'm always up there in waves on like Lake Geneva, like doing that stuff. But yeah, you bet I'll be thinking twice about it for sure.
Well, I mean, it's gonna happen. Like you're going to flip your kayak at some point. I mean, if you do this long enough, because like
if you do it long enough, if you do it long enough,
2 years ago, if the wind was over 15 miles an hour, I wouldn't get in the water. Last year, the wind was over 25 miles an hour. I'm going to test this and see what I can do. And then, you get out there and you're not scared anymore because you've gotten away with it so much, but you forget like when you were first venturing out and you're going out there and you're testing your limits and what you were made of, you're like, I'm going to stay really, like you were doing like these things in the beginning to prevent yourself from flipping. And I think, what happened to me was like, I just got cocky. I got really cocky with what my kayak could do and what I thought I could handle. And it caught me by surprise. And it's just one of those things that you always got to treat this thing kind of like how we were in the beginning, where like those things even though they were stable, but there was a part of you that didn't trust it at first. You didn't trust the stability of your kayak at first. And it took a while for you to get to the point where you're like, all right, I'm gonna try to stand up now. Okay, I'm gonna go out to these shitty conditions now. Oh, I'm gonna go up, and brave the elements and stuff like that. It's gonna catch you one day, and it's okay that it does that. But you just gotta. I guess one of the things that you probably learned, just like I learned, like I was very fortunate when I flipped my kayak that I had my battle buddy with me, because I usually go out alone. I'm like, when I'm home, like most of my friends live on the Finger Lakes, and I live on Oneida, so I usually go out there by myself and go fish. I fish by myself a lot on a big lake, and luckily that day I had my buddy, because my kayak flipped in the way where and I don't know how it happened, but the water got into my kayak, so now I have like this 400-pound kayak or whatever water that I got somehow dragged to shore, and I'm about 40, 50 yards away from the shoreline, and I if I didn't have my buddy there, like it would have been a scary situation, because I would have had to make a choice. Do I just leave my kayak? Yeah, because the water's cold, and you only got so long before. I'm not saying I'll get hypothermia, but once you fall in cold water, like the time starts. It starts. You got to go. Salvage what you can. At that point, I realized there's no point in me trying to swim 12 feet underwater to try to grab what gear I could. Like it was over. That gear was gone. There's no way I'm taking my life jacket off. And
I didn't even think about my gear until I was walking down the bank and I seen my kayak floating right by me upside down. Then it all hit me, because then I knew I was okay, and I knew I had just lost $10,000. My gear was not insured. So if anybody's listening right now, call their State Farm agent, call Jake, whoever you're going to call, and get your stuff insured, and figure out how to get it insured, because I don't know, you get it stolen from your car, these hotel lots, or you lose it like we did flipping. You're going to have a lot easier time rebounding from that, because
it's funny. It's funny you say that.
It's very empty. It's a very empty feeling, y'all, to lose.
Yeah.
some of your prized, material possessions. Thanks,
Right.
babe.
Well, it's funny you say that because I did have insurance on my kayak. And so when I brought my kayak home, and I called, like you, and I got to shore, and I'm throwing up because I just had to swim 40 yards
Yep.
with a submerged with a kayak that wants to sink to the bottom of the ocean. Or the
Oh,
lake.
man.
I get there, I tested my fitness. I got to the shoreline, and I
Yeah.
started throwing up. I'm like, Jesus Christ,
Yeah.
that was like, it was the worst, And then called my wife, tell her I was okay, and she's like, well, did you save your kayak? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, well, that was dumb. You should let that shit sink to the bottom. You would have got all this equipment for free or whatever. It was all covered. Like my kayak and like $5,000 worth of gear, everything would have been covered under my insurance. But because I salvaged my kayak, it'd be great. Like everything's okay, but still in hindsight, it's like maybe I should let that thing sink to the bottom because it was a rough swim, probably a dangerous swim. I was lucky I had like the strap that I had in the front that I was able to whatever, and I was doing these weird backstroke, whatever I could to get the kayak back to the shoreline. But it was a fight from the time I flipped to the time I got to the shore. But have insurance on it because if I wouldn't have got that thing back, I would have had to buy, the $4,000 kayak and then all the gear that I lost.
Also, in the bizarre case that you actually want to film your own death, make sure your SD card is not full. Otherwise, that whole incident would have been there. Because when we flipped the dang kayak up the next day, which is a story in of itself, the Garmin unit's running. The Kodak lithium battery in the hatch is on. The GoPro is in the front. It's still attached to the front of the hull. So, man, if that SD card wasn't full, man, because it was full even way before the incident happened because it stopped recording. So, otherwise, that might have been on. We might have been able to see that on the
next video. I was upset. I was upset with mine because I didn't have I had the Hero 8, I think, where you unless you had that safety device, like when you open up to keep the charger in, you got to open up the socket,
right.
Which
it does.
So I had that, and so when it flipped, everything got ruined that was inside the camera. And I wanted that footage so bad because it would have been funny to watch my
exactly
ass flip over.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy to watch that. I mean, you might be disturbed at first, but then you probably get used to it and then show it at dinner parties.
Yeah. So how was it going into the next day?
Well, listen. Well, I was in shock. I only realize it now. I was in shock. If you asked me then, I was fine. I was talking to people. As soon as I texted Cody and Christine emergency, they're troopers, man. They got the ball going. They started making some phone calls, and once they knew I was all right, man, they before I even thought of it, they were trying to get a boat or trying to get it because their batteries were drained and they had trolling motors. They couldn't really use it to go upriver with the low battery. So they were trying to, reach out, and a lot of people got involved. Vinny Ferrari, Joey Randall. A lot of people started making calls on my behalf around to people in the South Carolina area to try to get a boat or something to figure out if we could salvage or rescue, the kayak. So they were doing all that behind the scenes, which was just a godsend because, I don't know, a little bit later that night, I get a text from, a very kind gentleman who introduces himself and explains the backstory of how he came to know who I was. And excuse me, he said, listen, you're under a lot of stress. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to meet me at this location. And I believe he asked me approximately where I thought that thing flipped. And I gave him a circle on the map. And then we met at the campground, and he called his buddy, another gentleman by the name of Chad, that had a pontoon that we could use there. So that's why he told me to meet him at that campsite. So he had access to the keys, and we found the pontoon. And the funniest thing was it wasn't the first pontoon we tried with the keys. There's all these pontoons lined up, people sleeping, and we're in their pontoon trying to start it. Great. But one of them eventually fired up. And it was funny because the guy, Chad, the owner of the pontoon, was worried because I guess he hadn't started the engines since October. But the thing fired right up. So Chad, the other Chad Walden, he's driving the pontoon, and sure enough, we get about 2 miles upriver, and you can see that there's something sticking out of the water that's not natural. And it was the kayak that was pretty much almost submerged. If it wasn't for this giant log it happened to be on, I think the thing it might have sunk. Those things are hard to sink, I think, but I mean it was all in the water. It was like the current was just taking it. So the end was up, and we were able to put a big clamp with real heavy duty rope on it. And when we reversed, it kind of popped up and was like 3/4 in the water, but like you could see my drive. My drive was still locked in. I was like, yeah. And somehow I'm not even quite sure. Maybe through some physics of gravity and like getting that big rope, somehow both of us were able to flip it up. And when we flipped it up, that's when we saw the Garmin was still on and the battery was running and the GoPro said, I was like, holy cow. And by just a miracle, there was a cut in the river there, because really the only thing he was able to do is like hold it while he's like in reverse, and I'm up there with both hands on the deck of the pontoon trying to hold it from the H rails and like whatever I could do. But we got it. But like, what are we gonna do now? Because if he puts it in reverse, we're gonna go fast. Thing's gonna rip from my hand because it's so full of water and I can't get it. So there was this little cut that we were able to reverse and pivot into with the current, and then we stopped and we were fine. It was a still little cut. And then we were able to get some water out. We bailed some water out, and then it became light enough to turn. We got water out that way. And then it became light enough to stand all the way on its end, and we drained it all out of the drain holes. And I lost my seat, so I have no seat for the kayak now. But it was funny because going up to get the kayak, we saw what I thought was my tackle. I wasn't quite sure because there was lots of debris floating in the trees, but I'm like, I think that's some of my tackle. So it was really good to know that some of that was still floating and caught by the trees. So we took the pontoon down. And the pontoon was being mothershipped on the front of the pontoon. But I wanted to go get my stuff, and there's no way that pontoon has the agility to go get it in that current. So I took the pontoon. I'm sitting on my butt, holding on the hay trails, trying to pedal. But I was able to like he had a net, so I was able to like get my dye. My dyes were floating. I saw some plastic bags with my plastics in it. My square bill box I got, my top water box I got a box of mid cranks and my lipless. I was able to recover a few things. Some jerkbait boxes were still in the H crate when we flipped it over, so there were 2 rods. So it wasn't a total loss, and I started to feel really good about that. But the best part of the story is the guy's like, "Do you want to fish?" I'm like, "I don't have a seat or nothing. What do you mean?" He's like, "Dude, I got an Outback, and what do you need?" I'm like, a spinnerbait. That's what I need. Do you have a spinnerbait? Give me, if you have 1 or 2 spinnerbaits, it's fine. I'll take any spinnerbait you got. But if you got double willow leaf, the heaviest spinnerbait you got would be great. So next thing I know, I got his kayak. I got his Outback, which I've had an Outback for a year. That's one of my favorite kayaks ever. The redesigned Outback. I think that started in 2018 or 2019. But the Outback is a slick river rig, man. It's very, very nimble, very maneuverable, very fast. And I found myself in an Outback launching where I wanted to launch. It was about 9:45 a.m. So I launched. It was about 10 o'clock, and I just made the float. It was going to be a shorter float. I was going to get out way, way earlier than I did, when I had the accident. But he gave that to me, and I just willed 5 bass together, man. I was just furiously pedaling, stopping in the spots and the eddies where I knew there were fish. And Cody had already blown through there and caught a 7-pounder, 11-pounder that he took first place with. So I got his scraps. And on one of the spots, I caught a 16-something, and then a 3-pounder hit and got off, and then a 6-pounder hit, and it was hooked so good. I was fighting him for so long. And just some crazy random little slishy slash thing at the net, and then a hook came out. And normally that would send me like into a meltdown or a really bad like oh my goodness, how could that happen? And I didn't even care. I didn't even care. It was probably because I was the adrenaline and the shock and the thought of like that stuff that kind of doesn't matter. Here I am,
well,
like
you didn't think you were going to be fishing that day, I bet.
Yeah, totally, man. I was pretty much going to die, and then And that, so I was still in shock, man. I think maybe if I was a little healthier, had some perspective, maybe I would have just said, I'm gonna go home and count my blessings and do that. But you know what? Screw that, man. I mean, you got to get right back on the horse. You got to bite the dog that bit you, brother.
You have to. Yeah,
yeah, dude. Yeah, man. This is what we do, man. There's no options, man. And
dude.
And yeah, so I got 5 bites and I cashed a check, and I was like, fuck yeah.
What a perfect time to cash a check, though, right? Because you got a lot of fucking building up you got to do now.
I came in 15, so I got the last check. It wasn't that much. It covered my hotel costs. But still, any little penny costs, because the reality of quitting my job and like kind of doing this is the reality is there's some slim times ahead, man. I'm fortunate to have some kind and generous offers, and I don't have children. I say I saved. You know, I had a career for a while, so I have savings and stuff like that. And it's like my friend said, it's scary but cool.
Well, let me ask you, then we'll move on to something else. Like we'll move on to something else after this. But what are the lessons learned? Like I mean, like shitty situation. Like I learned a lot when I flipped my kayak. There's a lot of things that I learned.
Well, before we even get into gear and kayaks and stuff, it's the cliche of many people who get second chances or many people who face life and death situations. Man, tell the people you love them. Tell them, dude. It's the same thing you hear from these people. And for many people, that's awkward. For many people, they don't know how to express that. It doesn't make them bad people. They're capable of love, but they're not used to communicating that way. And I'm telling you, man, it is powerful. It's meaningful. People do not forget it. Little acts of kindness and love. People don't forget that stuff, man. When I was sitting there dying in the stupid laydown, that's what I thought of. I thought of all those interactions and all those people that meant so much to me. And that's what provided the damn comfort in my worst moment ever. So when you're that kind of human and you do that for people, dude, that shit pays dividends, man. That stuff is exponential in its effect. So communicate, have those discussions. If they're tough for you, screw it, man. I mean, it's better than not having it. So, think that way. These are some of the lessons learned. The funny thing about it is I was making a lot of strides like that as a person, as an individual before this. I've had a very rough last 2 or 3 or 4 years, and I've been making a lot of strides with positive mental attitude and thinking positively and doing healthy things for me and recognizing what I should be doing and shouldn't be doing. So this is like just another boost or another catalyst into preaching these kinds of things, man. Eating right, choosing love, thinking positively, maximizing your time, following your passion, doing something ballsy like quitting your day job, not because you're quitting or there's something unhealthy, but because it's perfectly healthy because you recognize that you're in a toxic situation. So just sort of embrace, this time that we have. That's just not long at all. It goes like that. I know everybody that's 30 can think of when they were 20 and it seems like that. Everybody that's 40 looks back at 30 like it was yesterday. I mean, this is just how it goes. So you have to maximize that. That's one of the lessons learned. To get back, more on a straightforward kayak level, like I said earlier, too much gear. My stuff was overloaded. The kayak's fine, the stability's fine, the speed's fine. I do everything, but it's overloaded. That's going to mess you up mentally. It caused the line to get caught in my pedals, and then ultimately when I flipped, it caused me to lose all that gear. So listen, it's up to you. You're going to organize your stuff the way that you want to organize them, but just take that into consideration, not just from the lose your gear standpoint, but you might be a better angler with less of that stuff to deal with. Absolutely. So think about that approach. Your life jacket, dude, wear it. Just bring it, wear it, whatever you need to do. Tie something on your finger, a reminder. Get over your pride. Get over the feelings of invincibility. Wear it. I mean, you could probably be in some good weather and some decent conditions. And if you're far out in a remote area, you're going to test your strength, and you're going to realize you're probably not strong as you think you are when you're in a situation where you're weighted or with clothes or you don't think you're going to go in.
Give me 1 second, Dustin. I got the little man's got to go to bed. So.
Oh yeah.
All right, night, bud. Say night.
What's up, buddy? What a cutie pie, man. Hi.
Right. Love you. Sorry about that.
That's why that right there. That's why you wear your life vest. That could be a segue into why you want to wear your life vest, because you come home to that precious stuff. How could you never?
The whole life jacket thing, it's not just the life jacket that you need to wear. You need to wear like the right kind. Because I run a tournament up here, and like someone like they had like it was like a fanny pack life jacket. I'm like, no,
boy.
No, you're not wearing that. Like the thing needs to look like it's gonna save your life, and then it needs to be like Coast Guard approved or whatever, that it's gonna save your life if you fall. And that was like
U.S. Coast Guard approved. That's important.
Yeah. But because a lot of people like try to look cool, they get the ones, and I think it was Kurt Smith. He was talking about like, cause there are different ones, and like some for certain weathers, this one's good, but then like for certain like other conditions, like rough, cold, whatever conditions, you can't have one of those whatever like pussyfied small one. You need a legit life jacket that's going to be able to handle the conditions. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I have this one.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
This one. It's a foam one. It fits around me. It's got the back padding. I got the whistle right here. So like I can if I'm floating upwards, I have access to the whistle and the sound device. And like I was telling Jen Nolan earlier on the broadcast, it's got the pocket here. And those pockets they should be filled with the necessary stuff. Your phone was in there.
Right.
And Gene Jensen at the awards and KBF awards told me that he even fits a foldable emergency blanket, the kind that folds like a deck of cards, but when you unfold, it's like those big silver warm blankets. And he says those things are completely legit. And he's also got like a little fire starter kit on him somehow like that. I had a fire starter kit, but it was in the front hatch. A lot of stuff. Wool socks, change of clothes, some emergency stuff. But what good does that do you when you're separate from your kayak?
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Cause I have everything that you just said. I have the small foil type blanket that traps heat really good. I have a fire starter kit. I have the blanket, but I'm sitting there thinking like it's in the hull of my kayak. Where like if I lose my kayak, what good is it at that point?
So exactly. So I was talking to a guy who said that he keeps a little thing like that, like some emergency stuff like that, to a pet PFD or some sort of like inflatable thing, so that if he sinks or he goes, that thing's floating and he could grab it. Also, make sure your phone's charged. Make sure you have a mechanism to charge your phone even on board. A lot of guys have the built-in USBs, rigged up with their batteries. I do have that. The Dakota lithium boxes are awesome. They got the USB ports. I mean, those things are money in the bank. But even like a small, like little Anchor portable charger that fit in my water bag, that where I carry cables and like things like that, for little moist towelettes and first aid kits, my asthma inhaler, like things like that. I carried in this like little Yeti bag. So, I mean, I had all that stuff, but when you lose it, it does no good. So make sure try to be cognizant of that. Always think of maybe a worst case scenario, and before you get on the water, are you prepared for that? Make a little checklist, like develop a little organization routine, and make a little checklist that you can check off before you even get in the water or near the launch, and you check all those off, and that's your little routine. It'll pay huge.
Yeah, I think the last thing though, if I had to say, like respect the conditions.
Yes.
That's like, I think you might be just as guilty as I am, because I think, like, I'm not exactly sure where you're from, but I know you fish a lot of big waters with big smallmouths, and I see you like I see you like me, like you go out there with your head forward, going out into like these big massive bodies of water, and like the weather, like I mean, the weather's rough.
If it's absolutely ridiculous and brutal, I won't go, especially if it's on like Lake St. Clair or something, or Lake Geneva or something like that. Some of these, even smaller and bigger lake. I mean, if it's just ridiculous, if there's a lake that's if there's like overcrowded, like on a weekend with like jet boats and parties, that's even more scary to me than the worst conditions.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, those people, they don't. I mean, people are more distracted these days than ever, and it's crazy. So
I think what I was getting at though, like with like the weather conditions, it's like it's okay to fish like some rough weather, but you gotta like acknowledge like what the dangers are. You gotta have a plan for it, and I think that's like some of the things that I've learned. Like, okay, like if it's windy, maybe I don't need to go out in the middle of the water. Maybe I need to stay more shallow, where if I do flip, it's not as dangerous. And whatever. Like it's like I think it's okay to fish like somewhat dangerous conditions.
Which direction is the wind going? What's it coming out of? That'll tell you maybe better areas to fish. I mean, wind blown stuff is really good, but you take a lot of things into consideration. But like you said, man, just respect the weather. Like, know what it does to your system. Have a plan of what you might do in a worst case scenario. Absolutely.
Right. Especially the plan part. If you got a good plan, like, it'll save you. You know what I mean? That's no matter what. I mean, if you got a plan and you have things in order, like, but I think you can't just go out there blind.
Yeah, clothing too. Clothing.
Yeah.
I mean, there are poor choices. I mean, there's no perfect thing. I mean, there's close to perfect. A dry suit is, unless you're in a situation like my lay down where it doesn't matter what's under you, you might just kind of be trapped. A dry suit is is something, especially the more expensive ones. That's something that's gonna keep you from suffering the hypothermia. But really, I don't know many people who use them. I mean, I think
I don't. I mean, I know I need to.
If you were going to ask everybody at the Lake Murray event to raise their hand if you're wearing a dry suit because the water temps are a little low, I just don't know how many people might raise their hand. I'm not judging it. I'm trying to make a biased or subjective claim on it, but I just know that those things will pretty much ensure that you don't suffer from hypothermia at least right away. And we're fishing early and late season stuff, and I just don't know many people who actually use them. And I know it's not even just the price that people complain about. It's something as crazy as not being able to move. The movement that's very stiff. You can't. That's like hard to like deal with, and getting them on and off is like almost a traumatic experience. People say so. So the things we do for comfort, we risk our lives for comfort, and that's why it's even unless if you don't have a dry suit, which many people don't. You definitely have to have a plan and respect the weather and be cognizant of what's going on and dress the right way. You can't be out there in steel-toe boots and like jeans with nothing on and like like a crazy heavy cotton full winter jacket or something like that. I mean, these have to be smart thin layers. Something I mean, you have to take your clothes into consideration as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, shit, man, I'm glad you're all right. I didn't realize.
Thanks,
I mean, like when you posted, I didn't realize like how bad it was. Now I'm like, Jesus
yeah,
Christ.
A lot of people didn't. Even my family.
When you said you almost died, I got like in hindsight, but it's like when I flipped my kayak, I could say that I almost died because I mean, like I fell in cold water. But when you tell your story, it's like, well, shit, dude, he almost died.
Yeah. No, and like I said, I think I was my adrenaline. I was kind of in shock because when I was driving home. Like when we started hitting like Indiana, I was like it hit me not only emotionally and mentally, but it hit me physically. It's like your body doesn't know it's sore or got beat up until it wants you to know, and when it wants you to know, it just shoots pain like right away. So like I didn't even notice. All of a sudden, I look at my hands. I got all like a million little cuts and scrapes all over them from doing all that stuff against branches and stuff like that. I probably did damage my arm a little bit. However, I reached back because that's like really, really, really sore. I'm just I was done physically. It was a crazy experience. So be careful about those decisions you make right after an experience like that, man.
Right. Well, cool, man. Well, so what do you have left, or what's going on with the rest of 2021? Like your season started off with a boom. You're alive. You got the rest of the year ahead of you.
Absolutely. If this incident didn't occur, I'd probably be in Broken Bow. But since it did occur, my family, doesn't want me to to go this week, and it's best for me to. I got a lot of work to do to like regain gear, and I got a lot of calls to make. So I think I'm just going to kind of lay low this week. But I mean, the rest of the season's wide open, and the beauty of it is I'm not like freaking out about an AOI or like freaking out about making all these events. The beauty of it is that I have time and space to do what I want when I want it. So I'm going to really pick some really cool destinations. We have some wonderful stuff going on with Catch Outdoors. We have some really cool shoots planned and some episodes that we already have in the can that we're taking our time with to make sure that there's quality content. We're really excited about the potential of that. So I'm going to do the tournament grind because I have that competitive fire, but I also really truly love trying to put a story together and write a good story and to capture these cool things in the outdoors and try to bring it to y'all, through the content. So that's kind of the plan.
Well, cool, man. We'll wrap this thing up. Where can people tell people where they can follow you? Thank whoever you want to thank that makes fishing easier for you. Just you're trying to share yourself and share everyone else that makes fishing easier for you.
Sure. Let me first off thank Catch Products, Duke over at Catch Products and with Catch Outdoors. He's a tremendous friend and a tremendous sponsor, and he makes a lot of things possible. And my road and my life would be a lot more difficult without him in it. So I'm very appreciative of him. Dakota Lithium is a ton of support. They really help me. Real Sportswear is another guy. Another company, a wonderful sports apparel company out of Texas that I'm working with, and they've been really helpful. And Hobie Fishing, I'd like to give a shout out to Hobie Fishing. Despite the incident, that's my go-to. That's my platform. That's what I feel most comfortable fishing with. and competing with, and the lifestyle's awesome. And I'd like to thank everybody that reached out, and everybody that helped me or made a phone call or sent a message, gave me a well wish. There was a lot of outpouring from complete strangers who said that they've been following me or watching me, and they're glad I'm okay, and they kind of love the stories I write and stuff like that. So that was meaningful. So I'd like to thank all those kinds of people, and I'd like to thank my wife Maria, who just makes me tick, and she's a huge support system. If I'm forgetting somebody, I totally apologize.
It's okay. It's a small, shitty podcast, and most of you are
Yeah, it's all right.
anyways. But no, dude, I
That's all
appreciate
right.
you coming on, man. It was a good story. Like I said, I'm glad you're okay. I'm glad you still got the rest of the season to get after it. But dude, thanks for coming on and sharing some of your time. Dude, there's
Absolutely,
so much more. There's so much more I want to talk to you about. But we're gonna save that for a later date.
Okay. You got it, man.
I really do appreciate
Anytime you want me, anytime you want me on, I'd be happy to come on and talk.
All right, man. Well, have a good night. Rest up. Get ready. We got a whole season ahead of us.
Okay, brother. Let's get to it, man. You have a good night.